Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're unpacking a name that carries just a staggering amount of weight.
Right.
It is a name that's synonymous with Brazilian flair, dizzying highs, and frankly, an almost suffocating amount of pressure.
It really is. It's a name that, well, if you follow football even casually, you know it immediately.
Yeah.
But the story behind the name, that is where things get really complicated.
Exactly. We are talking about Neymar. And look, if you're listening to this, you've probably seen the highlight reels.
Oh, for sure.
You know, the step overs, the rainbow flicks, the haircuts that seem to change every week.
Yeah.
You know, he's involved in some of the most expensive money moves in the history of the sport. But do you know the trajectory?
Most people don't.
Right. Do you know the path that leads a kid from Mogi das Cruzes to the absolute pinnacle of European football?
And I think that is the distinction we really need to make today. Most people know the celebrity. Very few people actually understand the machine that built him. We aren't just here to list off his stats, although, as we will see, the stats are massive.
Insanely massive.
Right. We want to look at this biographical account of his life to understand the critical career decisions he made. Because when you actually dig into the source material we're using today, you realize his career has been defined by these massive forks in the road.
Like turning down Real Madrid at 14 years old.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, sounds like fiction.
It does, doesn't it? But that is a pivotal moment we need to unpack. It sets the tone for literally everything that follows.
So our mission today for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to take this stack of biographical information, research, and reports, and we're going to construct the why behind Neymar.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he an icon? Why is he so polarizing? And how did he handle the weight of a nation that was just desperate for a hero?
It's a story about talent, yes. But it's also a story about management, family, and the crushing expectation of the World Cup.
So let's get right into it. Let's go back to the very beginning. Because to understand the superstar, you have to understand the origin. Mogi das Cruzes, Brazil.
Right. So let's look at the birth and lineage. Neymar was born on February 5th, 1992.
A February baby. Now, I've heard theories about athletes born early in the year having a developmental advantage in youth sports because they're physically older than their peers in the same age bracket.
Yeah, that's the relative age effect, and it's very real. But in Neymar's case, I think the bigger advantage wasn't just his birthday, it was his DNA, or rather his household.
You're talking about the father.
Exactly. His father's name is Neymar da Silva Sr., and his mother is Nadine Santos. But looking at the family dynamic, especially with the father, you see the very first building block of his success.
Because the dad wasn't just a regular dad kicking a ball in the backyard.
No, not at all. The source material is very specific about this. His father, Neymar Sr., was a professional footballer herself.
Which changes everything. I mean, this isn't the classic rags to riches story where a kid discovers a ball in an alleyway and teaches himself magic entirely on his own.
Precisely, and I think we need to challenge that narrative a bit. Neymar wasn't just discovering the game in a vacuum. He was born into the industry.
Right.
His father wasn't just a parent. The source notes he was his trainer during his childhood.
So he essentially had a live-in coach.
A live-in coach who actually understood the professional game. Think about what that means for a 6 or 7-year-old.
This is a huge advantage.
Huge. He's not just learning how to kick the ball. He's learning the discipline, the mechanics, and probably the business side of the sport before he can even read properly. That mentorship likely fast-tracked his development in a way that raw talent alone just couldn't achieve.
It's like having a master-level tutor for a subject you're already gifted in. It accelerates the entire process. But then you combine that structured professional guidance with the environment he was playing in.
Yep.
The source mentioned something that feels almost like a cliche about Brazilian footballers. But we need to break it down.
Street football.
Yes. The source explicitly says he was a well-known player of street football.
And we shouldn't gloss over that phrasing. Well known.
Right. Well known.
That implies he had a local reputation before he ever put on a professional jersey. But let's think about what street football actually does to a player's biology.
Okay, let's unpack that, because it's very different from academy training, right?
Okay.
It's not playing on a perfectly manicured grass pitch with a referee and a whistle.
Completely different. In an academy setting, you have space, you have structure, you have predictable bounces. On the street, it's chaos.
Yeah.
It's tight spaces, uneven surfaces. You're often playing against older kids, bigger kids.
So the physics of the game are different.
The physics and the cognitive load are totally different. To survive on the street, let alone be well known, you have to develop insane close control.
Right, because there's no rum.
Exactly. You can't knock the ball 5 yards ahead and run onto it because you'll hit a wall or a parked car or another person.
Oh,
you have to keep the ball glued to your foot.
So you have to be quick, but not just running speed in a straight line.
You have to be quick mentally. You have to be creative. You can't just outrun people. You have to outsmart them. This is where that signature Neymar flair comes from.
The step overs, the quick cuts.
Right. It's not just showing off. Originally, it's a survival mechanism from the streets of Mogi das Cruzes.
Yeah.
That creativity becomes the foundation of his entire professional identity later on.
So you have this amazing lab experiment going on. The professional dad providing the discipline and the structure, and the street football providing the improvisation and the grit.
It's the perfect storm.
It really is. And it didn't take long for the official clubs to notice. By 2003, the timeline really starts to accelerate. He starts representing the youth ranks of a team called Portuguesa Santista.
Okay, so he's in the system.
But not for long. In that exact same year, 2003, he moves to the city of Santos. And this is the big one. He joins the famous Brazilian club, FC Santos.
And he was only 11 years old.
11. Just a child.
But joining Santos at that age, that carries a very specific weight in Brazil. That is the club of Pelé.
Right. It's hallowed ground in the football world.
To be recruited by Santos at 11 signals immediate, undeniable recognition of talent. They saw something in him that said, this is the future. They weren't just filling a roster spot. They were acquiring an asset.
And speaking of assets, we hit this moment in the research that I found absolutely fascinating. I feel like this is a piece of trivia that a lot of people might have forgotten or maybe never even knew because it sounds completely insane today.
You're talking about the European offer.
The Real Madrid offer. Okay, so paint the picture for us. He's a teenager.
He is 14 years old. He's been at Santos for a few years, and he gets accepted by the Real Madrid Academy.
Accepted, not just scouted. Accepted.
That's right. He literally could have gone. And think about what Real Madrid represents, especially in that era, the Galacticos, the biggest stage in Europe. For a 14-year-old kid from Brazil, that is usually a golden ticket.
Yeah.
You pack your bags, you go, you secure your family's future forever.
But he didn't go. He stayed at Santos.
He stayed.
Why? I mean, usually the story is, oh, he stayed to be close to family or he wasn't emotionally ready. But the source gives a very specific, very pragmatic reason.
It does. The source explicitly states that he stayed back with FC Santos after the club offered him a better salary.
Wait, hold on. Let's really look at that. Santos, a Brazilian club, outbid Real Madrid for a 14-year-old.
Yes.
How is that even economically possible?
That is the million-dollar question, quite literally. It implies a few things. First, it tells you about the confidence Neymar and his father had in his value.
Right.
They weren't dazzled by the bright lights of Madrid. They treated it as a cold, hard business decision. You want me? Pay me.
Which goes back to the dad being a former pro.
Right.
Right. Understanding the business leverage they held.
Absolutely. But secondly, and this is the fascinating part about Santos, it tells you about the financial mobilization the club was willing to undertake. They essentially bet the farm on a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
They likely brought in partners or third-party sponsors to cover that salary, betting that his future transfer fee would be worth 10 times what they were paying him right then.
It was an investment strategy.
Exactly. They treated him like a tech startup company. They injected capital early to keep him, knowing the IPO, the eventual transfer to Europe, would be massive.
That is just wild to think about. A 14-year-old being the center of a financial war between continents. So he stays. He takes the salary. And he continues to grind at Santos.
And that bet paid off beautifully. In 2009, at the age of 17, he signs his first senior contract.
And boom, he makes his senior debut shortly after. This kicks off what we can really call the Santos era. And looking at the numbers here, he wasn't just a prospect. He was a machine.
He was a phenomenon. Over the next few years, he becomes a prolific goal scorer. The source cites the stats: 54 goals in 103 appearances.
That's basically a goal every other game for a teenager.
In a very tough, very physical league. You have to remember, defenders in South America do not take kindly to young kids doing stepovers and making them look foolish.
No, they do not.
He was getting kicked, he was getting fouled relentlessly, and he was still scoring a goal every other game.
But it wasn't just about the individual goals. It was about the silverware. He helped Santos win the Copa Libertadores.
The source calls it the Liberators Cup, but yes, the Copa Libertadores. That's essentially the Champions League of South America.
And that is a brutal, grueling tournament to win.
It is the absolute highest honor in South American club football. For Santos to win that, it established Neymar not just as a YouTube highlight reel, but as a verified winner.
Right.
He could deliver on the biggest stage the continent had to offer. It proved he had substance, not just style.
And the rest of the world started noticing. I mean, they noticed at 14, but now the official awards started rolling in.
The trophy cabinet started filling up incredibly fast. 2011 was a massive year. He wins the World Soccer Young Player of the Year.
Which is a global award.
Yes. And then the one that really put him on the map for the casual fan, the FIFA Puskás Award.
Oh, the Puskás. That's for the best goal of the year, right?
Correct. And even without seeing the video right now, just knowing he won that award tells you everything about his style.
Yeah.
You don't win a Puskás for a tap-in. You don't win it for a standard penalty kick. You win it for artistry. You win it for doing something that makes the entire stadium gasp.
It implies a true spectacle.
It implies that street football DNA coming out on the professional stage. It's him dribbling through 4 or 5 defenders and slotting it home. It proved he was the ultimate entertainer.
And he capped off that period by winning the Golden Ball in 2012, which in this context refers to the South American Footballer of the Year. So by the time he's 20, he has conquered South America. He's done everything you can possibly do there.
Exactly. He's the undisputed king of Brazil. But while he's tearing it up at Santos, there's this other narrative running in parallel. The national team. Brazil. The iconic yellow jersey.
Right.
And this part isn't as smooth as the club career.
No, the international career is where the story gets really turbulent. It's a mix of incredible highs and some truly heartbreaking lows. It feels like a soap opera.
It starts with a snub, doesn't it?
It does. Let's go back to 2010. The World Cup in South Africa. The manager of the Brazilian national team is Dunga.
A very pragmatic manager.
And Neymar is the new kid on the block. The fans are screaming for him. Everyone wants to see the boy wonder on the world stage.
The public is just clamoring for him. They want the Joga Bonito, the beautiful game. But Dunga overlooks him. He leaves him out of the squad completely. The source describes this as controversial, and frankly, that's putting it mildly. It was a national scandal.
I remember that. It was a huge debate. Experience versus youth. Discipline versus flair. Now, just to be clear for you listening, we're not taking a side on whether Dunga was right or wrong here.
Yeah.
We're just looking at how the source material describes the fallout.
Right, exactly. That's the eternal struggle for national managers. Do you trust the veterans who have been there, or do you roll the dice on the 18-year-old prodigy?
Dunga went with experience. He went with the safe bet.
And how did that work out for them?
Brazil didn't win. They were knocked out.
Right.
And that failure just fueled the narrative that Neymar should have been there. It created this massive what-if scenario. If only we had brought Neymar, we would have won.
So the pressure ramps up even before he plays a single real tournament game.
Exactly. He's being anointed as the savior before he's even had a chance to fail.
So he misses the World Cup.
No.
But he makes his debut later that year in a friendly. He does. And then we move into 2011, the Copa America. He nets twice, so he's scoring. But the campaign itself is described as unsuccessful. Brazil didn't win. So now the critics start whispering, okay, he's great for Santos, but where are the trophies for Brazil?
There comes the Olympics in 2012.
He scores 3 goals, they get to the final. But they lose. They get the silver medal.
Which for Brazil is failure. Let's be honest.
For Brazil in football, anything less than gold is a crisis. A silver medal is just a shiny reminder that you lost the final match. So you have this building tension. Neymar is the star, but he hasn't delivered a major trophy for the country yet.
And that brings us to 2013, the Confederations Cup. This feels like the true turning point. This feels like where he finally silenced the doubters.
This was the moment. The Confederations Cup is the warm-up tournament for the World Cup. It was hosted in Brazil. The pressure was immense. The fans were demanding a performance.
And who do they play in the final?
Spain, the reigning world champions. The team that was dominating global football with that tiki-taka style, they were considered largely unbeatable at the time.
And what does Neymar do?
He explodes. He scores 4 goals in the tournament. Brazil beats Spain in the final. And Neymar wins the Golden Ball as the player of the tournament.
That must have been huge. Beating Spain, the best team in the world, right before the World Cup.
It was a massive statement. It proved that he wasn't just beating up on South American defenders. He could lead Brazil to a trophy against top-tier European opposition.
Yeah.
It validated everything. It told the Brazilian people, I am ready. I can lead you to the World Cup.
And it perfectly set the stage for 2014, the World Cup on home soil. I mean, we can talk about pressure, but I don't think there is any greater pressure in all of sports than being the main star of Brazil, playing in a World Cup in Brazil, searching for their 6th title.
It is unfathomable. The source explicitly calls him Brazil's main star entering that tournament. Think about that phrasing. He's 22 years old, and the hopes of 200 million people are pinned squarely on his shoulders.
It's crazy.
Every billboard, every commercial, every news segment was about him.
And initially, he really delivered.
He did. He scored 4 times in the tournament. He was carrying the attack. Brazil was winning. They looked a little shaky at times, but Neymar was the undeniable difference maker. They made it to the quarterfinals against Colombia.
And then the moment that changed everything, the tragedy,
the injury. Late in the game, he takes a knee to the back from a Colombian defender. He falls. He's stretchered off in tears. The entire stadium goes dead silent.
It was like the air was just sucked out of the entire country.
And the consequence was brutal. The source is very stark about it. It just says, could not play the semifinal against Germany.
And we all know what happened next.
The source describes it as Brazil being eliminated in a humiliating manner.
It doesn't even list the score. It just says humiliating. And honestly, that's enough. We don't need to say the numbers. We know what happened.
It was a total historic collapse. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the psychological impact. The main star, the talisman, is suddenly removed. The team completely collapses without him.
Yeah.
It remains one of the biggest what-ifs in his entire career. What if he had played? Would it have been different?
He had to watch that humiliation from home, completely helpless.
Exactly. He wasn't on the field to fight. He was a spectator to his own team's demise. That leaves a massive psychological scar.
It's tragic, really. But while this international drama is playing out, his club career takes another massive leap. We have to rewind slightly to 2013, because while he was prepping for that World Cup, he finally made the move to Europe.
Yes. The big transfer saga. We talked about him staying at Santos at 14, but by 2013, he just couldn't stay any longer. He had conquered South America. He needed a new challenge.
The source calls it a bitter tug of war.
Between the Spanish giants again, Real Madrid and Barcelona, they both wanted him desperately. It was El Clasico, played out in the boardroom.
And this time, he chose Barcelona.
He did, for a transfer fee of $76 million.
$76 million. In 2013, that was an absolutely astronomical figure.
It was. It placed an immediate heavy price tag on his head. When you cost that much, you do not get a grace period. You have to perform immediately.
And did he? I mean, looking at the 2014 to 15 season, this is right after the World Cup heartbreak.
That season is described in the source as his greatest achievement as a footballer.
Wow. Greatest achievement. So he bounced back from the back injury.
He didn't just bounce back, he ascended to a new level. The numbers back it up perfectly. He scored 39 goals across all competitions that season.
39.
And look at what the club won. The league, the cup, and the Champions League. The historic treble.
That is the holy grail of club football. Winning everything there is to win in a single season.
It is. And he wasn't a passenger for this ride. This is the crucial part. Sometimes players win trophies because they're just on a really good team.
Right.
Neymar actively drove that team. In the Champions League specifically, he scored 10 goals. He ended up as the joint top scorer.
Joint top scorer.
Yeah.
That means he was matching guys like Messi and Ronaldo goal for goal in the hardest club competition on earth.
Exactly. This validated all the early hype, all the YouTube videos, the street football stories, the huge salary at 14. It all culminated in this. He proved he wasn't just a flashy Brazilian player. He was undeniably one of the absolute best in the world.
And speaking of being the best, the source mentions the Ballon d'Or right around this time.
Yes. In the 2015 FIFA Ballon d'Or, he was officially shortlisted.
Who was he up against?
The usual suspects.
Yeah.
Messi and Ronaldo.
And the result?
Came third.
You know, coming third in the Messi-Ronaldo era is basically coming first in the normal human being category. Those two were just aliens.
That's a very fair way to put it. Being the best of the rest during their absolute dominance was a massive achievement in itself. It solidified his place in the hierarchy. He was right there, knocking on the door. He was the prince waiting to become king.
He kept putting up numbers, too. The source mentions the 15-16 season, scoring 14 goals in 12 La Liga games at one point. That's just absurd efficiency.
It is. He was virtually unstoppable.
He also had a historic moment in the Champions League, that famous comeback.
The round of 16 in the 2016-17 season, the source notes he scored 2 goals in that game. It doesn't give all the details of the comeback itself, but just noting those 2 goals, that was him taking the game by the scruff of the neck.
Right.
When the team was down, when all hope was lost, Neymar stepped up.
And he hit a major milestone at Barcelona shortly after.
He did. He scored his 100th goal for the club in his 177th appearance.
100 goals in 177 games. That consistency is frightening.
It is elite, truly elite. It puts him firmly in the pantheon of Barcelona legends.
So let's pause and look at the landscape for a second. He's at the top of the world. He's winning trebles. He's scoring hundreds of goals. He's playing alongside Messi, arguably the greatest of all time. Life is good. But then August 2017, another massive twist.
The move to Paris, PSG.
Why? I mean, the source just gives us the bare facts. It says he joins Paris Saint-Germain on a contract running until 2022. But looking at the context we've built, he leaves Barcelona. He leaves the best league in the world.
It's interesting, isn't it? He moves to a new league, a new challenge, and there's a detail here about his arrival that I find very telling about his core motivation.
The jersey.
Yes. Javier Pastore, who was already playing at PSG, offered him the number 10 jersey as a welcome gift.
The number 10.
In football, the number 10 is absolutely sacred. It's the playmaker, the star, the unquestioned leader. It's Pele's number, it's Messi's number.
And at Barcelona, Messi had the 10.
Exactly. At Barcelona, Neymar was the sidekick. A brilliant, historic sidekick, but still a sidekick. At PSG, with the number 10, he's the king.
So for a teammate to literally hand it over as a gift that signifies immediate status, it was the team essentially saying, you are the man now. This is your team.
That's the heavy implication. He wanted to be the focal point. He wanted to step out of the shadow and lead his very own project.
Before we wrap up the timeline today, we have to look at the man behind the player. Because amidst all these transfers and millions in trophies, there is a real human being. The source gives us a few glimpses into his private life, which is usually kept pretty quiet.
It is surprisingly private for someone of his stature, but we do know he is a father.
Yes, a son named David Luca.
Born in 2011, so he became a father very young, around 19 years old.
The mother is Carolina Dantas, and the source notes that the boy lives with Neymar.
It's a grounding element, isn't it? Amidst the total chaos of his career, having that daily responsibility, it adds a layer of maturity that maybe the haircuts and the dancing hide from the general public eye.
Absolutely. And speaking of his life outside football, we also see his brand crossing over into pop culture. Did you know he was actually in a movie?
I did see that in the notes. XXX Return of Xander Cage.
Released in 2017.
It's a small detail, but it shows that his fame had reached true Hollywood levels. He wasn't just a footballer anymore. He was a global celebrity. He was an entire brand.
But with that celebrity and that specific style of play comes a massive physical toll. We talked about the constant fouls. We talked about the severe back injury. There's a quote from him in the source that I think is really important to close on.
Everyone has a right to rest so as not to injure themselves.
Everyone has a right to rest.
It's a powerful statement, especially coming from him.
Why specifically from him, though?
Because he is an athlete who has been fouled more than almost anyone else in the modern game. His style invites contact. And he suffered that devastating injury in 2014. It's an acknowledgement that the human body has limits.
Yeah.
In a high-pressure career where everyone demands more goals, more games, more global tours, admitting you need rest to survive is actually quite brave.
It brings the necessary human element back to the superstar. It reminds us that he isn't a machine built for our entertainment.
It does. It shows a deep level of self-awareness.
So let's bring this all together. What does this all mean for you listening? We have the boy from Mogi das Cruzes,
who honed his skills on the rough streets, learning to survive in chaos.
Who rejected the biggest club in the world at 14 because he and his father knew exactly what his worth was.
Who conquered South America, won the treble in Europe, and carried the hopes of 200 million Brazilians through immense highs and crushing, painful lows.
He's put up over 100 goals for 2 different major clubs. He's won the Puskás, he's won Olympic gold and silver medals.
He represents the modern football prodigy perfectly. The immense stats, the massive transfer fees, the global fame. but also the national trauma of 2014. He has lived his entire life in a high-definition fishbowl.
It's incredible when you lay it all out chronologically like that. It's a career that feels like it has lasted 3 lifetimes.
It really is, and it leaves you with a really profound question.
What's that?
When we look back at Neymar's career, considering the stats, the $76 million transfer, the bitter tug-of-war between giants, has the sheer weight of expectation defined his career more than his actual play on the pitch?
That is the ultimate question. Do we judge him on what he actually did, which was objectively incredible, or on what we expected him to do?
Exactly. We projected so much onto him. Did we ever just let him play?
That is something for you to think about. He's undeniably great, but was he ever allowed to just be a footballer without carrying the weight of the world?
It's the heavy burden of the genius.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the life of Neymar. It's been a fascinating ride.
Thanks for being here. It was a pleasure.
Catch you on the next one.